All right, let's work through some of this parsing. I think the easiest way to approach this is to start from the tests and then just build enough code to pass each test as you go along. So here we're trying to parse an expression statement. And it turns out an expression statement is, it can be an assigned statement, or it can be just an expression followed by a semicolon. So a statement like this is legal in Java. Well, maybe it's not. Hmm. I thought that was legal. Anyway, we can have an expression. There certainly are expressions that have side effects and then produce a value. And you can either have them as a statement by themselves or you can assign them to something, right? So a method call, for example, this is an expression. This is a method call expression. And we can also assign the return value to something if it has a return value, or we can leave off that assignment. Okay, so we're going to always have an expression first here. So we will do something like this. And then there are two things that could come next. Either we're going to see an equal sign, which would be an assignment, or we're going to see a semicolon. Right now, we're only worried about the simpler case with just the semicolon. So I'm just going to go ahead and consume that. And we'll assume assignment statements are basically not supported right now. And then we're going to say new expression statement. And we'll give it first number and give it the expression first. Okay, and then if we want this to work in our test, we also need to turn it back into source code. So here in expression statement, we need to fill in accept. So we'll see visit. Let's see, can I do that the expression statement? Yeah, okay. We have a pre-visit and a post-visit here. So looks like we should call pre-visit first. And then we'll pass the visitor onto our expression. And then we'll call post-visit. And if we run this test now, we'll probably get a little bit farther. What are we seeing here? So we're not getting a semicolon and we're not getting the new line. And that's because we haven't updated our print visitor yet, right? So in our print visitor, we need to find expression statement. And after an expression statement, we need to append a semicolon and a new line. All right, one down. Okay, now we need the assigned statement. So this is going to be our other flavor of expression statement. Of course, all of these things that we're building right now are going to get more complicated as we go forward. This first pass is a very simplified version of Brew. All right, so let's go back to parse expression statement. So really here, we need to check if the next token is an equal sign, right? So if tokens.lookahead equals, then we're in the second case where we have an assigned statement, right? So we'll say tokens.consume the equals. And then we're going to get the other expression. So parse that. And we can try to refactor this, but I don't know that there's going to be a nicer way to do this. We have to consume the semicolon, and then we need to return an assigned statement in this case. So we'll put it on the line number from first, and the L value will actually be first, and the right side of the expression will be value. So for now, the only thing this left side expression can be is an identifier expression, right? We can say something like x equals, and then have an expression there. All right, so we've done that. We need to put our accept method in for the assigned statement. We have a pre-visit, a visit, and a post-visit here. So this is going to work much like the binary expression, where we tell the visitor we're at the assigned statement before we've processed either expression. Then we're going to pass the visitor to the left side expression, right? So we'll say value.accept the visitor. Then we call visit in between the two expressions. We pass the visitor to value, and then we're going to call post visit. And then in our print visitor, we will need to handle the assign statement. Here it is. So before our variable expression, we don't need anything. In between our two expressions, we need an equals and a space on either side of that. And then at the end of our statement, we're going to append our semicolon and new line. Okay. What's next? Next, we have a while statement. And that's going to come from test parse statement. If you look at this in test util, it calls test parse and tells which brew parser method we want to call. So this is really where our code's going to be. All right, so we're going to handle the while statement. For now, we'll just use look ahead to do that and ignore the rest, right? So if tokens look ahead while, then we're going to parse the while statement. And there is already a method for that. And in our while statement, we need to consume the while. And then we're going to have an expression. I think maybe this comment was messed up here. Yeah. So right now, because our expressions have to have parentheses, we get this ugly syntax for the while. So really, this comment should have parentheses in it. So we need to consume those two. Consumer parenthesis. We need to consume other parenthesis at the end or after the expression. This will be an expression. So this is going to be the condition. And then we're going to have a compound statement. So that'll be this. And now we can create a while statement with all of this stuff in it. So we'll give it the line number of the condition, probably is fine. This is going to affect the way things work when we debug. Basically, the line numbers that get assigned when we generate the code will determine how the debugger steps through the code. But we can tweak things then if we have it acting funny. Okay, so we've got this. Now, we haven't yet handled the compound statement, so we need to go do this too. So here we're going to do a consume of open brace. And we need to do that again. Close brace. And in between, we're going to have at least one simple statement. And here, we're going to return a new compound statement. And it will take a line number. I guess we're always going to have a first statement, right? So we're going to say here statement. First is first simple statement. And that's where we're going to get our line number. And then our end line. Actually, I think maybe we're required. Well, we'll figure it out later. I think the tests actually are going to check this. End line will be on this token, right? So we're really going to say, here, we'll do this, close brace, move. And here we're going to use close brace to get my number. And then our body is going to be, this is going to be a list of statements, I think. Yeah, so we need to build a list here. And we'll add first to it. And then we need to keep doing that as long as we're not at the close brace, right? So while not look ahead, close brace, body dot add statement. Okay, and then this will be our body. Okay, so our compound statement exists. We need to fill in our accept method. Here, if we put in compound statement, we only have a pre and a post visit. So revisit this, post visit this. In between, we need to pass the visitor to all of the statements in the body. So here we'll say statement.accept visitor. And then back in our parser, this was being called here, and we were adding while statement, right? So while statement needs an accept method too. Pre-visit, pre-body visit, and post-visit. So then we're going to do the condition. And we'll say pre-body visit this. Then we're going to pass to the body. And then finally, we'll click post-visit. This compound statement unhappy here. Well, it's not called body. Okay. And now if we go to print visitor, we can find the compound statement. This is going to start with a brace, right? So we'll say append brace. And at the end, we need to close the brace. And this will have a new line on it. Actually, I think the first one's always going to have a new line too, right? And we need to find our while statement. So here we're going to have a while and probably a space. And then before the body, we need to say, what are we going to do? So we're in between the condition, which was an expression, and the body. So we're going to put in a new line. And then we're going to put in the open brace for the body. And that'll have a new line after it also. And at the end of our while statement, we need a close brace and a new line. Probably kind of close on this now. Well, maybe not. It looks like maybe we ended up in an infinite loop there. Is that what happened? Okay. Let's start here and see what's going on. All right, so we go into test parse. We're going into parse here, create a parser, apply our parse method. So we're in parse while statement. Consume our while, go get the condition. Maybe we're stuck in a loop here. So consume our brace. Yes. Okay. Our simple statement hasn't been filled in enough. We need an else block here that's going to handle the expression statement. So if none of the others match, then this should be an expression statement. So we need that in here. Okay, no more infinite loop. What have we got? Okay, we're not getting the parentheses for the while, which we are going to need to add. And we're getting extra braces because I put them in the while statement and the compound statement already generates them. Okay, so here we need a parenthesis. Oops. Here we don't need this. And post visit while we don't need that. And I need a close brace after the condition. So pre-body visit needs a close parenthesis. And Also, this line is not indented. So now we need to handle indentation in our print visitor. Now, really what's going to happen here is when we start a compound statement, we're going to increase the indentation, and that needs to affect every statement, right? So we can't just append some extra spaces here after the condition and new line. That would only affect the first line inside the while. We really need to have a state variable here that we're updating to change our indentation level. So let's have another string builder. We'll call it indentation. And it's probably convenient to have some methods for indenting and unindenting. So here we'll say indentation append two spaces. And then we'll have an unindent. And this will delete the last two spaces from indentation. Okay, and now whenever we start a compound statement, we'll need to increase the level of indentation, right? So actually, it's this. Maybe this ends up being the only place we needed to do this. So maybe I don't need the methods for indent and unindent. Okay, so that actually just managed the indentation, but we're not using it yet, right? So now all of our statements need to be indented using that. So before an expression statement, we need to append our current indentation. And before an assign statement, we need to append the current indentation. And the same goes for before our while statement, because it could be indented as well, right? Okay, let's try this. Actually, here we need it too, don't we? Because the braces can be indented inside of another compound statement. What's happening now? We're out of bounds trying to delete stuff. This is in our unindent. What's happening here? Okay, indentation is one space. Oh, I just messed this up when my editor put a comma in there for some reason. Okay, what do we got now? Now we need, okay, I don't want a new line here. We're actually keeping our braces on the same line. So while statement. Here, we're just going to put a space, and then the compound statement will start on the same line. Getting closer. Yeah, and because of that, we don't want to indent the opening brace in our compound statement. So we don't want this here. All right, while statement is complete. If statement is up next. So we're going to be in here. Here we need another case. If we have an if, we're going to do if statement. And then to listen. So we'll have our consumer if, and then we're going to say expression condition, expression, and then we should have a compound statement, right? So then block, I guess we'll call it. Okay. And then else is optional, right? So we'll say if Let's look ahead else. Then we either have an else if or we have just our final else block. So now we're going to say consume the else, first of all. And then if the next thing is an if, then we'll say the else block. So here we're going to have I guess a statement, else block that could be null. Here we would say else block, if statement, else we're going to parse the compound statement. And then here we can create our if statement. And it'll be the line number, I guess, from the condition. We'll give it the condition, the then block, and the else block. Okay, and now we need to be able to visit these. If statement, we have pre-visit, pre-then visit, pre-else visit, and post-visit. So pre-visit, yes. Then we're going to handle the condition. Then pre-then visit. And then we'll handle the then block. And then we'll only do the next two if the else block exists. In that case, we'll say pre-else visit, and then else block dot accept, and then we always do a post visit. Okay, and then in print visitor, okay, the beginning of our if statement, we need our indentation, then we need an if, and a space, and we'll have our expression, and then we're going to append a space before the brace that the compound statement will put in for us. And then that'll get us all the way to the close brace of the compound statement. Now, if we have an else, we need to append space, else space, I think. And then at the end, we're going to append our new line. And that might be it. See what happens. Input string brace. Our if needs to handle parentheses. Forgot about that. So we are definitely going to put open parenthesis here and close parenthesis here. But it's really our parser that was giving us trouble there. We consume the if. We forgot to consume the parentheses. Actual gave us an extra new line. Didn't need this because the compound statement's already doing it for us. Is that what happened? So here, the new line appears to be coming from the compound statement. So I think we're doing that wrong. We probably don't want compound statements to put in the new line. So we'll need to do that here. And then we'll need to fix our while statement because it will need one at the end now. Okay. So now the while and the if are working. Like the return statement is up next. So it's one of our simple statements, right? Yes. Okay, so let's see, return. And the IDE keeps trying to be helpful. It does not help. Okay. So here we have a return and an expression that is optional. So assume the return expression value is null, and then if not, tokens look ahead semicolon. We have an expression. And we do need to always consume the semicolon. And here we'll return our statement. I guess this should be the line number, right? Probably can't call that return. This will be ret get line number and our value. And then visitor has pre-visit and post-visit. And then if the value exists, we need to pass the visitor to that. And then print visitor return statement, we're going to convert indentation and return space. And then after it, we need our semicolon new line. Okay, and we only want the space if there is a value here. All right. Function calls. I think it's method call. Yeah, method call expression. Okay, so this is a type of expression, method call expression. And right now, this is going to look like method name. It's the method name and then the arguments. And arguments starts with a parenthesis. So when we're looking at an expression, if it starts with a parenthesis, it's a binary expression right now. If it starts with a word or a letter, then this is the identifier, and it could be a variable name that we're doing something like x equals, or it could be a method call. So in here, we need to actually check what's next. So if tokens.lookahead, parenthesis, right? So we've already consumed, we've removed the ID, so that's the name of the method call. So if the next thing is a parenthesis, actually, wait, it's probably easier to do this here. So we'll look ahead and we'll say if it's anything followed by a parenthesis. Is that right? We know that this starts with a letter. So if it's something starting with a letter followed by a parenthesis, then it's a method call. Or not. First method call expression. And that target expression thing was left over from newer code that we haven't got to yet. So I guess I pass them all there for now, but that's, actually, I'm going to just delete it. Okay. finish this. Yeah, okay. So there's our parse method call expression. Now we need to handle that. So we're going to say token identifier or method name, we'll call it method. And then we need arguments. So we're going to say argument list, first arguments. And then this is going to be a new method call expression. Give it method name, get my number, the name, and args. My number, method name, and arguments. Oh, this is a token. I need to get the string that is the method name. Okay. So now let's parse our arguments. We're going to have a open parenthesis. We're eventually going to have a close parenthesis. Now, we'll say while not, look ahead, close parenthesis. We're going to get an expression. Actually, the first one is special, right? There's no comma. So I think we're going to say if this first. Then we're going to parse an expression. And here we need an argument list. Oh, and I give it a list of expressions. Okay, so that'll be down here, I guess. Options here. We'll say this, and then we're going to do expert.add parse expression. And then we'll do this a bunch of times. Anytime there's not a closed parenthesis, we need to consume the comma, and then we need to parse the next expression. That's probably okay. Okay, and then our method call expression, we need our accept filled in. So we do that visit. We have a pre-visit and a post-visit. Okay. And we'll say arguments to accept the visitor. Post-visit this. I guess I'm not, did I read that wrong? Oh, it's a visit. We have a visit and we have a post visit. So I think this is going to change later and maybe we'll have a pre-visit too. But for now, we'll call the visit, handle the arguments, do a post visit. And then our argument list also needs an accept method. So here we have a pre-visit, a post-visit, and a between argument visit. So we're going to do our pre-visit. And at the end, we'll do our post-visit. And the between arguments visit is basically how we're going to insert the commas. So it shouldn't be called, it should be called between arguments, but we can't call it after each argument because it would be called once, one extra time at the end. So we're going to do something like this. Arguments, size. Why isn't that working? Oh, there's no member here. Oh, I see. Okay. Argument list extends array list. So we don't need to say arguments. We are the list. So Try 0, I is less than size. And then we're going to say, we're going to call between visit as long as I is not 0, right? If I is greater than 0, we call. So what we want to happen is we're going to pass our visitor to the argument in this position, right? So it'll be expression arg is get I. So there's our argument. So when it's 0, we'll get the first one. Then we want to call between. I guess it's not if I is greater than 0. It's when I is less than size minus 1. Um, and also it wants to know the next index. So next index is going to be I plus. And here we're going to get the argument at position I and then say accept the visitor. Okay, let's see what happens. Well, we didn't update print visitor, did we? Okay, so method call expression. Visit it. We're going to append our indentation. We're going to append the expression's method name. And then a left parenthesis. And then we'll handle the arguments. And don't we need a post visit here? I feel like we need a post visit. Well, we need a close parenthesis. I think there is a post visit here. Actually, I can do it this way. Right? Yeah, there it is. It just wasn't here for some reason. Okay. We need a close parenthesis. And the semicolon will be taken care of by the expression statement. So here we're doing better. 3 comma x gave us the values of the args, but it didn't give us the comma. That's because we need to handle the argument list. That's why that method wasn't there for method call expression. We don't need this. The argument list is where the parentheses come from. So at the beginning of an argument list, we get an open parenthesis. And between arguments, we get a comma and a space. And then at the end, we're going to get our close parenthesis. Yeah, I left an extra one in here. We don't need this. All right, one more to go. Method definition. Okay, when we parse a method, we're going to have a return type. This is going to be a data type. We're going to have an identifier. We're going to have parameters. I think there's a method for that, parse parameters. And we have a compound statement. So this will be the body. Here we're really starting to see how the recursive descent parser makes things simple, right? We've got all these pieces. we can combine them in any way we want, right? We can nest if statements, we can nest while statements. I didn't even look at this test, but we had a test here that nests things and gets the indentation level right. Because I approached the indentation the right way, this just passed automatically. But you can see we've got these reusable components. We can just say, go parse a data type, go parse a compound statement. We can put them together in different ways. The method definition, this is going to be the line number where the method name is, I guess. The end line is probably, I believe, yeah, our compound statement knows what its end line is. Return type's fine. Name is method name. We have our params and bodies. Here we need to do a get value. Okay, there's our method definition. We haven't yet handled this. So this is going to look, actually, this looks just like parse arguments, right? So let's copy this. It is different because it's going to return a different type of object. Each parameter has two parts instead of one. So this is going to be a list of parameter definition, I guess. And we'll call this params. And here we need to say parse parameter. But otherwise, this is basically the same. And then here, when we parse a parameter, it's going to be a data type and an identifier. So type equals parse data type. Token name is the next. And then here we're going to return a parameter definition. It'll be name value and the type. Okay, so we need to do the accept methods for these things. So parameter definition has a visit, and that's it, right? We got visit this. We probably need to look at data type. Does it have an accept? I guess it doesn't count as an AST node. Okay. Need to go to parameter list. And again, this is going to be much like argument list. Let's copy this code. In fact, it might be exactly the same. This is going to be called something else between parameter visit. I guess this one doesn't need an index. And then we need to look at method definition. Here we have pre-visit, pre-body visit, and post-visit. Pre-visit this. We're going to pass the parameters, the visitor, pre-body visit this, and then the body needs to be handled, and then post-visit this. Okay, and then in our print visitor, we need to fill in these things. So parameter definition is going to be the type dot toString, and then we'll append. Let's see. Guess append a space, and then we'll append the parameters name. And then for our parameter list, it starts with parenthesis. And between parameters, we have our comma space, and we're going to close parenthesis. And then for our method definition, we're going to want to append our indentation. No, I don't think we can have this indented right now, right? So we're just going to append the name, and then parameters will get handled. And then before the body, we need a space. And then the body will provide the open brace and the code inside the method. And at the end, we'll need a new line. Maybe that's it. Let's see what we've got here. Expected input got void. Oh, yeah, okay. In the parser, when I did the method definition, this shouldn't be data type. This should be return type because return type allows void or any other data type. So if if tokens dot look ahead void, then we're going to say return data type dot void. Otherwise, we'll return this data type. Okay, we got a bad syntax exception. Here, we expected a parenthesis, but got void underscore. So it looks like we didn't consume the name or something. Expected a parenthesis, but got foo. Let's look at this. Not sure what's happening. We're going to have to step into this. All right, parse. This, create our parser. We got our return type. We got our method name. Oh, right. Yes. Okay. So void isn't handled correctly. So if it's void, we need to consume the void. All right. That makes sense. Cannot invoke parameter list except because parameters is null. Okay. So when I created the method definition, parse parameters did not return anything. Yeah, here we go. Well, I guess this works differently than the argument list. Oh, it's a linked hash map. Okay. So it's a map from the name of the parameter to its value or something. So yeah, something like this. And we'll do the same thing here. Okay. Now what have we got? Now we've got output and it's just wrong. So we forgot the return type. And I think we're in good shape here, actually. I guess you can do any object, can't you? Okay. Well, we got farther. We got the first one to work. Here we couldn't call parameter definition except. because get I was null. Yes. Yeah, we can't really do this way, can we? Because this is a linked hash. Okay, so for what do I need to do? I need to call accept on the parameter definition. So really, we just need to iterate over the values, right? So for ram in entry, no values. Yeah, we're going to call ram.accept the visitor, and we're going to call b dot between parameter visit this, but we need to not do it. I guess we're going to call this before it, but we won't do it the first time. So we'll say first time is true. If not first time, do this. And first time becomes. So the first time through, we won't call this. We'll pass the visitor to the parameter, and then we'll call the in-between every time after that. There we go. So at this point, we're parsing some pretty complicated code, right? We're parsing code like this, and we can build the whole AST from it and then turn it back into source code. So the next step is to try to compile it and generate some opcodes we can actually execute.